In this video, we're going to take a look at a red ink by Noodler's, one of their lubricated inks, Rattler Red Eel. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description are links to the red ink playlist, so if you want to see more red inks, you can find that there. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather, spread, halo sheen, spots that are a little bit darker like the K in quick, not a lot else. 7 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, again 1 or 2 dark spots, the N in brown, the X in fox, the S in jumps. 11 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show almost no color variation. We only get very light peppering in here. And the smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Nemesine Fission with a broad nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. We get no bleeding, very minor ghosting, only a little bit like in the stub. That's not a bleed spot, it's just sloppiness. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 14 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 22 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show no color variation because there is none, and the smear test, I don't know, you could, in the extra fine maybe, in the medium not recover it if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see very definitely this pink at the bottom. That pink is not a watered down version of the red. It pushes up, and we do see this nice dark red at the top. The one on the right is let dry for 10 minutes before it's dunked in the water, and that pink is very pink, very there, starting to form a line at the bottom, giving the idea that it might be a little bit of a resistant tone. The rest of the red pushes up very much the same as the first chromatography. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 6 seconds to dry. The medium is darker than the extra fine, not as dark as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 11 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both don't show any color variation. We didn't expect it. We didn't get it. In a smear test, you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I feel very safe using it in a note-taking situation. It doesn't budge. Awesome. Water is lifting all the darkest tones, but still leaving a lot of that red behind. Pen Flush is lifting all the red, really leaving that pink in place that we saw in the chromatography. And the 1/3 bleach solution is having the same issue. It's lifting the red entirely, but not the pink. That pink is a very permanent aspect to this ink. The really good news is it only took water to get this out of my pen. The next writing sample is done on North Books paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 1 second to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and still 1 second to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. There is none. And a smear test, of course you can recover it if you smear while you're writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, with a realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Noodler's Rattler Red Eel has a viscosity of 3.43, making this a drier ink. If you're interested in how all that viscosity stuff is done, then down below is a link to that video. Now let's take a look at the next writing sample done on Nimacine paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 8 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 13 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show a tiny bit of color variation, but we're not getting it in the writing, and the smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, and the realm of normal was 13 to 21 seconds. Noodler's Rattler Red Eel has an average dry time of 12 seconds, making this a bit faster drying than normal. The last writing sample is done on 20-pound copy paper. Now we have a lot of bleed spots that are going through and a lot of ghosting as a result. None of this bleed comes through and touches the next page. You just can't use the back of the paper. The medium has no feathering. Really very surprising based on all that bleed spot. No spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. It performs really well here. Great ink for cheap paper. Medium is the same, extra fine is the same tone as the medium. No feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade. 1 second to dry. Great ink on this cheap paper. Again, scrubby shows no color variation. We didn't get it in the smear test. You can definitely recover it because you can't smear it. Instead of finding inks that look like Noodler's Rattler Red Eel, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I like putting green with red, and I chose Herbin Lierre Sauvage because Lierre Sauvage sounds like a Sith name, and they used red lightsabers. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those different playlists. So what do I think of Noodler's Rattler Red Eel? For me, this is just red, now as a color. A bright red, but it is still just a red. It's very well behaved and has the added benefit of the lubrication that it brings for your pens. For that, it gets brownie points with me. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? If I was choosing a nib and pen, I really like its darker tone from a wetter pen, like a wet medium, a wet broad. I really like how that looks. Although you're really going to be putting it into whatever nib is in your piston or vacuum fillers. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at Sailor's Yamadori.